The Voting Rights Act celebrated its 50th anniversary this week. And in the midst of all the discussion about it, including a statement by President Obama, it seems to me that we are often missing the most important issue connected to this story. Not who has the right to vote, as important as that is, but how tragic the numbers are in terms of people who exercise that right. A bit of history first. 50 years ago this week, Congress, in the midst of literally a bloody war in which people, primarily African Americans, were bleeding and even dying to exercise their constitutional right to vote amidst highly discriminatory laws, passed the Voting Rights Act. President Obama this week spoke about the need to restore that law, responding, presumably, though he didn't name it, to the 2013 decision by the United States Supreme Court to weaken one portion of the law. Now, it's interesting because he didn't say exactly what he wanted to happen and didn't directly address the Supreme Court. At the same time, the law does seem to be pretty vital in that even this week as well, a federal court struck down a provision in Texas that demanded kinds of picture ID for some voters, for all voters, saying that for many of them, particularly blacks and Hispanics, it would be discriminatory because they disproportionately didn't possess the kinds of ID the law required. So it seems to me that actually that's not our biggest problem, though we do have to worry about access, and that fight will still continue. But since it usually devolves into progressives saying that conservatives are racist and that's why they don't support more elements of the law and its use, and for conservatives looking at progressives and saying they just want to help people vote illegally, which is clearly not the case, maybe what we have to do is work on good enforcement of the law as it is and not worry about what it isn't. But because democracy's lifeblood is participation, and participation is clearly not where it needs to be in this country, this 50th anniversary should give us pause to remember something that should trouble us all wherever we are on the political spectrum. In the 2014 elections, we reached the lowest level of participation in this country since World War II. 43 states, not even a majority of their voters turned out to vote, and no state in the United States of America got to 60% turnout. Now I get it, midterm elections are usually not great in terms of turnout, but it wasn't great in 2012 either. We have a participation problem in this country, and no law is going to change that. That's a cultural issue. And rather than fighting about the fine points of any one law, it seems to me all people should come together and start figuring out how to creatively incentivize voting, how to build a culture that rewards and celebrates voting, how people don't simply fight for a right they seem not to want to exercise, but how we create a culture in which people can enthusiastically embrace the power they have. The power to vote. And even if the choices we've got are not great, and even when the choices we've got frustrate us, the one thing no one can take away from us, and about this the Voting Rights Act was sacred, the one thing no one must ever be able to take away from us is our voice and our participation in political process. We need laws, and we need a culture, even more importantly, that reminds people and celebrates people for exercising that most sacred right and most profound necessity in a democracy, participation. Participation, participation, participation. Democracy can sustain bad results, but it can't sustain its citizens walking away from using their voice to make a difference.